Hey guys, SnowShovel here, and today I'm going to try to wrap my head around one of the biggest issues that I think Blacksquad has with sniping, and that is the mouse sensitivity issue, and just the lack of precision when you're playing at a low sensitivity. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this is pretty prevalent if you are using a low sensitivity mouse, like 400 DPI, and low sensitivity in game. Like I'm using 8 sensitivity in game and 400 DPI, and this is very noticeable, especially on the DSR here. So when I zoom in all the way, I'm moving my mouse across my mouse pad right now, and it's barely picking it up. Like, this is how fast I'm moving it. And when I zoom in, it's not picking it up at all. So I tried to get an understanding of what's causing this, because I did notice this happened in AVA as well, but on a much smaller scale. And I found out that this is an Unreal Engine specific problem and quirk. And so I tried to get a better understanding of this. So what essentially Unreal Engine does is it has these things called rotators, and that determines your mouse input and pretty much how fast your mouse moves in game and where it will be based on the rotator. And so that's determined based on your DPI, your in-game sensitivity, and a very, very tiny value that Unreal Engine uses to determine where your mouse will be in three-dimensional space. Now, it has to turn that value into an integer, and an integer has to be a whole number. But the problem is, when you start calculating all of these parameters, you don't get a whole number. You get like, I don't know, let's say 10.6753, and that extra bit at the end there, the decimal places, that gets lost in translation because it has to become an integer. So you get these things called rounding errors. Now, when you're playing at a 1-to-1 resolution like this, you don't really notice the errors that much because it's almost unnoticeable. Even at a lower sensitivity, it's almost unnoticeable. In fact, I don't notice it at all. But it's when you start zooming in with the snipers that you start to notice this pixel loss issue. And the reason for that is Unreal Engine has a parameter that ties your sensitivity to your field of view. I don't know the exact command for that or what, but I know it exists because otherwise my sensitivity would be the exact same as I zoom in, which it's not. So what happens is it takes that integer and then it scales it down based on your field of view. So let's say this is like 100 field of view. It's not, but let's just say it is. And let's say when I'm zoomed all the way in, it's 10. So what's happening is it's taking my original value and it's scaling it down to 10% of its original value. And then it's rounding it down to become an integer. Now, that rounding error at 1-to-1 right now at 100 field of view is not that big of a deal. But when you start scaling it down to 10%, that's when it starts becoming a huge issue. That's when you start noticing that your mouse movements aren't being picked up, because if they don't meet a certain speed, it's simply not picked up at all because of the rounding error. It will simply round it out and your mouse movement gets canceled out into nothing. So you have to move at a certain speed for it to get picked up. And that's just a really big issue that this game has. I did notice this in AVA, like I said, but it's much smaller. So that tells me that there's some sort of value that's taking place in the game that's causing this to be very pronounced. And I don't know the exact fix for that, but I just wanted to make light of this and kind of let the developers know that this is a really big issue for people with low sensitivity. And just wanted to make a really quick video on that because I know that it affects me and it affects a lot of other people as well. And it would make sniping a lot more enjoyable in this game if they were to fix that. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.